The U.S. military is striking Iran, including Kharg Island. The United States has launched a new attack. Southern Iran is shaking from American bombardments. Major explosions shook coastal cities in southern Iran. And in Tehran, they promise that they will respond. And a new threat in the Strait of Hormuz. Iran is deploying advanced missiles and mines and declares that it has attacked American bases in Kuwait and in Bahrain. After the American strike, Iran responded to Trump's threat. It was published that not a single soldier will return alive, and in addition, the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps in Iran is threatening revenge and declaring that they will behead President Trump, or at least try to. And today, we'll bring you the message from Witkoff and Kushner that led to the new and renewed American attack on Iran. Global oil prices are surging after the United States strikes Iran once more. In the United Arab Emirates, they're threatening that Iran will pay a heavy price. And here in Israel, we're taking no chances. Israel is on peak alert. The IDF is preparing for a return to fighting. I'm Ali Shoshani, and tonight, Yael Pinto's on vacation. I'm filling in for him because he too deserves to rest. But Ashlea will be with us, so don't go anywhere, because here on Boots on the Ground, we bring you the whole truth and what's happening in Israel, and also the whole truth of what is happening in our neighborhood, the Middle East. Today is July the 9th. I know the news feels a bit like a loop. Every few days, we go back to fighting, then stop, and then go back once more. And it looks like right now, this isn't ending. But hold on tight, because it seems that the situation in the Middle East is bringing the whole world closer to a third world war. So let's begin. After a full day of Iranian attacks in Hormuz, and after the declaration that the Memorandum of Understanding had, in effect, been canceled, United States President Donald Trump said that he believes that the Memorandum of Understanding with Iran has come to an end. And he sharpened his tone towards Tehran. I don't want to do business with them. They are sick people, they are liars, cheaters, and evil, the president said, adding that they are simply shooting at ships. Prepare for a hard night for the Iranians, 20 times harder than any time before. He also threatened that he would consider bringing back the blockade on Iranian ports and even taking control of Kharg Island, which serves as a center hub, an essential hub for Iranian oil exports. And indeed, tonight, the U.S. military is carrying out strikes in the south of the country and on Kharg Island, known as Oil Island. The U.S. military has announced that it struck about 90 military targets in Iran, including air defense systems, observation and surveillance assets, missile and drone storage sites, naval capabilities, and military logistical infrastructure along the country's coastline. In addition to that, American officials have said that cruise missiles were launched towards 2 railway bridges in northern Iran. The first strike on infrastructure of this kind since the ceasefire came into effect in April. The President of the United States published footage on social media from the wave of American strikes in Iran and made it clear that any further harm to freedom of navigation in the Strait of Hormuz would be met with an even harsher response. In addition, tonight, during this flight back to the United States on the presidential plane, Air Force One, he addressed the escalation with Iran and delivered an especially strong message towards the regime in Tehran. In his remarks, Trump claimed that the Iranian leadership is acting out of extremism and danger, and even stated that he himself is considered one of its main targets. Now, according to the American president, the United States is in a clear position of superiority against Iran, and he expressed confidence that the current confrontation will end within a short time in Washington's favor. Trump claimed that militarily, the United States has already achieved a significant advantage, and that the Iranians understand the depth of the blow that they have suffered. Later in his remarks, Trump also said that Iran wants to reach an agreement with the United States, and even claimed that Iranian officials contacted him shortly before his statement. That said, the president emphasized that from his perspective, the contact itself is not enough, and that it's still unclear whether the regime in Tehran deserves to receive an opportunity for a new diplomatic arrangement. It seems that, on the other side, Iran is preparing to fight back. The response will be regrettable, that is what they say in Tehran. The United States military announced this evening, Thursday, that by order of the Commander-in-Chief, United States Central Command forces have begun carrying out additional strikes against Iran in order to further damage their ability to threaten freedom of navigation in and around the Strait of Hormuz. The United States holds Iran responsible for the latest unjustified aggression against commercial ships and civilian crews sailing freely in a vital international waterway. Just a short time ago, the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps published footage from the launching of missiles towards American bases in the Gulf. The IRGC took responsibility for attacks on American bases in Kuwait and Bahrain. At the same time, pro-Iranian media outlets reported explosions at the Fifth Fleet in Bahrain and the activation of alarms at an American base in Jordan. The Iranian announcement comes as part of a sequence of exchanges of threats and military actions between the United States and Iran, with each side presenting its actions as self-defense or as a response to the actions of the other side. In Washington, they emphasize that the United States will act to defend its forces and its allies in the region. While in Tehran, they continue to declare that they will not allow the Americans to act against them without paying a price. It is also verified that attacks were indeed carried out against American bases in Kuwait and Bahrain. This is a significant development that could expand the circle of our confrontation beyond Iranian territory and the area and the arena of the Strait of Hormuz. A direct attack on American targets in Gulf states could place the entire region in danger of a wider escalation, especially given the security sensitivity surrounding shipping routes, the energy market, and the American military presence throughout the Middle East. The Revolutionary Guards deployed the launchers at points controlling the strait, alongside advanced mines made of fiberglass, which are said to be especially difficult to detect using standard detection systems. The purpose of the move is to prevent commercial ships and oil tankers from using the maritime corridor secured by the United States, and to increase pressure on Washington and the international community. Now, according to the sources quoted, in Tehran, they want to establish effective control over the strategic shipping route through which about 1/5 of the world's energy supply passes, and thereby change the balance of power in the region and present a new challenge to freedom of navigation in the Gulf. The words of Iranian Foreign Minister Araghchi eliminated the calm and led Trump to order a powerful strike. It appears that inside the Revolutionary Guards, they're gambling on breaking all the rules in Hormuz and presenting demands that contradict the understandings in the Memorandum of Understanding. And this follows an internal argument taking place inside the Revolutionary Guards. The newspaper of the Revolutionary Guards is calling to declare Trump a man marked for death and to place a financial reward on whoever murders him. Revenge against Trump and Netanyahu is part of the goals of the revolution. The mass funeral of the former supreme leader, Ali Khamenei, was not only a farewell ceremony for the man who stood at the head of the Islamic Republic for more than 3 decades. From the perspective of the Iranian regime, this was a moment of testing, a moment in which the leadership sought to prove to the world that the Iranian regime no longer depends on one man, but on a strong institutional system that is expected to continue the path of the supreme leader even after his death. The masses came to the funeral, but the crisis in Iran is only deepening. The funeral procession of Ali Khamenei drew millions of our participants and was presented by the regime as proof of unity and strength. But behind the images lies a reality of economic crisis. disagreements at the top, and uncertainty about the future. We'll soon bring you all the full story of the collapse of the Revolutionary Guards in the country of Iran. And following the escalation between the United States and Iran, Israel is preparing for a return to fighting. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and Defense Minister Israel Katz both held a special security consultation last night, Wednesday, against the backdrop of the escalation between the United States and Iran and the severe threats voiced by United States President Donald Trump against the regime in Tehran. Right now, everything is in the hands of the American president. Israel is in a position of an observer from the sidelines. Israel hopes that the Americans will carry out a complementary move to the roar of the Lion War, or that the Iranians will attack us because of some excuse connected to Hezbollah and will be forced to launch another sequence of strikes in and throughout Iran. From Israel's perspective, there are several points that must be changed. First, to erase from the Iranians' minds the thought that they won the campaign. Second, to dismantle Iran's nuclear capability, including the confiscation of enriched uranium. Third, Israel demands another blow to Iran's ballistic capability. Fourth, Israel would like to see the collapse of the Ayatollah regime. Now, the Iranians do not truly intend to accept the demands of the United States and the free world. There's no way they will hand over the enriched uranium. They won't give up their ballistic missile array, just as they will preserve their proxies in Lebanon, Gaza, Syria, Iraq, and Yemen. And therefore, the possibility of another round of fighting is especially realistic. It is just not clear at what intensity and exactly when. While the tension with Tehran is worsening following the American strikes, it seems that in Yemen, they are setting a clear goal. The time has come to end the era of Houthi terror organization, and the time has come to liberate the capital, Sana'a. So there's a lot ahead of us. Let's dive into the details. I'm Mati Shoshani, and Yair Pinto will be back with us at the beginning of next week. But today, our reporter Ashlea will be with me, and we're here on Boots on the Ground, bringing you the whole truth of what's happening in Israel and the war against the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps in Iran, the head of the axis of evil in the Middle East. Just before we begin, I want to call on you to continue spreading the truth. Share our content with as many people as possible. Click the subscribe button. And most importantly, don't forget to look for me, Mati Shoshani, and Yair Pinto on social media to get a view through our eyes of what it's like to live in Israel under war. Now, many Israelis are still juggling reserve duty while trying to get back to work and handle their day-to-day lives. It isn't easy. Your body's tired, your mind is overloaded, and the pressure doesn't stop when the uniform comes off. I've been there repeatedly in recent years, coming home from reserves, trying to be present for my family, catching up at work while still feeling like I'm in survival mode. It takes strength, it takes energy, and faith to push through. That's why I started using Vinia. It's an Israeli supplement made from red grape cells that helps improve blood flow to your heart, brain, and muscles. And for me, that meant better focus, more energy, and fewer days with that foggy, burnt-out feeling. I started using it during the reserve duty, and I'm still taking it today. In fact, this is their hydration mix. I exercise quite a lot, even in the summer, and I need this, and it works. And tastes. I don't know how to explain the science. All I can tell you is it hydrates, and it gives me a ton of energy. Anyway, I started using it just before reserve duty, and I'm still taking it today. I like the coffee in the morning. Some people go for the tea or capsules, but either way, it simply works. And if you want to give it a try, go to TBNIsrael.com or call 800-638-1944. And make sure you say that Mati and Yair sent you. Because faith helped me stay grounded, and Vinia helped me stay sharp. Let's get back to the news. Powerful explosions were heard overnight in Bandar Abbas, in Sirik, in Shabahar, in Bushehr, Abu Musa Island, and Khalg Island. The United States launched another wave of strikes against Iran with one clear objective at the center of the operation: to break the Revolutionary Guard's ability to threaten freedom of navigation in the Strait of Hormuz. And according to U.S. Central Command, the strike was completed against 90 Iranian military targets, air defense systems, coastal surveillance sites, missile and drone storage facilities, naval capabilities, logistic infrastructure, and targets along Iran's coastline were all hit. And the question now is simple: is this only a limited American enforcement action, or are we already seeing a gradual return to a wider war against Iran? And to understand that, we need to start at sea. The story didn't begin tonight with American bombings. It began the moment the Revolutionary Guard started firing again at ships and tankers near the Strait of Hormuz. This is one of the most sensitive routes in the world, not only because of oil, but because of what it represents. Who can keep passage open, and who can turn an international passage into an area of extortion? The Americans say that the strike came as a direct response to attacks on commercial ships and civilian crews. From Washington's perspective, Iran violated the understandings, threatened an international waterway, and then tried to present itself as the side only responding to threats. But on the ground, the picture is more complicated. Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi sent the Americans a deeply problematic message. He can't guarantee that the Revolutionary Guards will stop firing at ships and tankers crossing Hormuz. That sentence, more than any speech, explained to the White House who it is actually dealing with. Because if the foreign minister can't guarantee that the regime's own arms will obey an agreement, then the real question is, who's running Iran today? Is it the government in Tehran or the Revolutionary Guards on the coast? Now, the Revolutionary Guards didn't settle for threats. They tried to create a new reality in the Strait. Demands for advanced reporting, permission to pass, a transit fee, and movement only through a route determined by Iran. That runs against the spirit of the Memorandum of Understanding, which set free movement through the Strait at least during the negotiation period. Now, according to reports, alongside the naval threats, the Iranians deployed launchers at points controlling the Strait, together with advanced mines, some made of fiberglass, making them much harder to detect with traditional systems. That's an important detail, because a small, cheap, quiet naval mine can do what a large missile does: stop insurance companies, drive up energy prices, and make captains think twice or three times before entering those waters. The American strike was built exactly against that layer, not only against missiles, against the whole envelope that allows Iran to harass shipping, radars, surveillance sites, naval bases, storage facilities, small boats, coastal defense, and systems. And in Bandar Abbas, one of the most important points in Iran's naval network, reports described strikes on shipyards, naval industry facilities, and a base belonging to the Revolutionary Guards Navy. In the Chabahar area, 2 piers and a maritime traffic control tower were reportedly hit. In Iran Shah, explosions were reported near a building and a runway. In northern Iran, there were also reports of 2 railway bridges being struck with cruise missiles. This is no longer only a small round around the coast. This is a blow that touches Iran's ability to move forces, store weapons, control the sea, and send a message to anyone trying to rebuild the threat network. Tehran responded quickly. Iranian officials warned that missile and drone units were ready for a broad attack against American bases in the region. The Revolutionary Guards took responsibility for attacks against American targets in Kuwait and Bahrain. At the same time, sirens were activated in Bahrain and Kuwait, and there were also reports of heightened alert around an American base in Jordan. You have to understand the sensitivity here. Bahrain is not just another country in the Gulf. The U.S. Fifth Fleet is based there. Kuwait is a critical logistics base for the American presence in the region. So any fire in that direction, even some of it intercepted, is an Iranian attempt to say, if you hit us on the coast, we can touch deep inside your regional network. Inside Iran, the personnel or the personal threats also became stronger. A newspaper identified with the regime published a call to declare Trump a marked man and even spoke about a financial reward for whoever assassinates him. Mohsen Rezai, once a senior commander in the Revolutionary Guards and now an influential figure around the leadership, said that revenge against Trump and Netanyahu is part of the goals of the revolution. This isn't only rhetoric. This is the regime's way of trying to regain oxygen after assassinations, strikes, sanctions, and severe damage to its deterrence. It creates mourning, revenge, and political force in the same sentence. All of this connects to the funeral procession of Ali Khamenei. The regime tried to present the crowds in Tehran, Najaf, Karbala, and Iran as proof that the Islamic Republic had not broken. But behind the large images lies a much harder reality: a suffocated economy, inflation, renewed sanctions, unemployment, disputes at the top, and a society moving between fear, exhaustion, ideological loyalty, and a simple desire to return to ordinary life. In Israel's security establishment, they're looking at this coldly. Khamenei's death does not necessarily weaken Iran. It may actually strengthen those who remain with weapons in their hands. And that means, first and foremost, the Revolutionary Guard Corps. For decades, Khamenei built a system that does not depend only on one man. Institutions of government, security mechanisms, a parallel economy, military power, intelligence, and regional proxies. So his real heir is not only Mujtaba Khamenei or any other name at the top. The real heir is the system. And at the head of that system stands the Revolutionary Guard Corps. This is where we go to Ashlea, Alex, because while the fire is burning in the Gulf, the real drama is also taking place inside the White House. Now, Ashlea, what is happening there around Trump, around Witkoff, Kushner, and the debate inside the administration?
Hey, Matti, thank you. So yeah, inside the American administration, there's now a real debate. On one side, there's the line that says the United States should continue trying to reach an agreement with Iran, especially on the nuclear issue. On the other side, there's a line that says the Iranians interpret every easing of pressure and every pause as weakness, and therefore military and economic pressure must be restored. The message brought by Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner was probably the breaking point. When they reported that Tehran could not guarantee the Revolutionary Guards would stop striking ships, Trump understood that the problem was not only the wording of an agreement, the problem was enforcement. From the picture emerging from the consultations, there were three options on the table. The first option was to continue negotiations in the hope that the economic incentive would eventually overcome the hardline position of the Revolutionary Guards. That is the Witkoff and Kushner track. It says, keep the channel open, offer limited relief, and try to bring Iran to a final agreement. The second option was to restore heavy enforcement of sanctions without immediately returning to a full naval blockade. In other words, choke Iran's oil income, but leave enough movement in the Gulf to avoid an uncontrolled surge in energy prices. The third option was a renewed naval blockade on Iran. That's a harder move. It could almost completely stop oil exports and the import of goods, but it could also bring an Iranian response against Gulf states, American bases, and possibly Israel as well. Right now, Trump seems to be moving between the second and third options. He wants to hit hard, but not necessarily enter a full war. He wants to restore deterrence, but also leave himself the option of saying that the Iranians are the ones asking for a deal. That's exactly what he said on the presidential plane. Trump claimed the Iranians had called him a short time earlier and that they desperately wanted a deal. But he added that he did not know whether they were worthy of a deal and did not know whether they would honor it. That's Trump in his most familiar mode, a military threat in one hand and a door to a negotiation in the other. One moment he's saying Iran is behaving like a sick and dangerous regime. A moment later says maybe everything can be closed quickly. At the NATO summit in Ankara, he also went even further. He threatened that the United States might strike again tonight. He spoke about the possibility of taking over Karg Island, Iran's main oil export terminal. He said the Iranians had tried to restore part of their radar network and that any system that comes back online can immediately become a target. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth reinforced that line. He said the strikes focused on small boats, underground facilities where missiles or drones are stored, coastal defense sites, radars, and surveillance sites. In other words, everything that allowed Iran to harass shipping in Hormuz went onto the target list. But there's also a domestic political side. In the United States, criticism is already being heard. Bernie Sanders called for an end to the war and argued that it's irresponsible. On the other side, conservative voices say Trump must finish the job and not allow the regime in Tehran to keep playing between fire and negotiations. Even Trump's flight back to Washington became a story. According to reports, he left Ankara on the old Air Force One aircraft after a special security recommendation from the Secret Service. Still unclear whether the new aircraft he received from Qatar includes all the defensive systems of the older plane. Trump initially denied that this was connected to an Iranian threat, but later admitted there may have been a connection. That's a small detail, but it tells the whole atmosphere. A president threatening to strike again, Iran speaking about personal revenge, a secret service that prefers not to take risks, and a Middle East where every symbolic move looks like a message. And Matti, the most important thing is that the White House is not only looking at Iran right now, it's looking at oil prices, the elections in the United States, NATO, Spain, Turkey, Israel, and the question of whether Trump will be remembered as the president who closed the Iran file, or as the president who allowed the Revolutionary Guards to pull him in to another round.
Thank you, Ashley. And that point is very important because in Israel, this is not seen only as an American event. Everything happening in Hormuz eventually reaches Kiryat Shmona, Haifa, the Lebanese border, and the Situation Rooms in Tel Aviv and Jerusalem. Let's talk about what we do here for a second. What you see on YouTube is only part of the story. If you want to get closer to firsthand reports, behind-the-scene moments, and stories of faith, resilience, and hope from Israel, visit our website, tbn.org/journeys/boots, or text BOOTS, that's BOOTS, to 316-316 for direct updates from TBN Israel. With me, Matti Shoshani, and Yael reporting directly from Israel, you're not just watching the news, you're witnessing what's happening on the ground. TBN Israel brings honest, first-hand coverage from the ground in Israel to viewers around the world. In partnership with Global TBN, we share what's really happening through a Judeo-Christian perspective rooted in truth, in faith, and the people living it every day. Your support helps deliver on-the-ground reporting, real stories of resilience and hope, and trusted coverage that connects Christians and Jews to Israel. Let's get back to the news. Israel is on high alert, but not in panic. The air defense systems, the Air Force Control Network, and the fighter squadrons are ready. Security officials stress that at this stage, no unusual preparation has been identified by the Revolutionary Guards for missile launches towards the Israeli home front. But no one here is building on comfortable working assumptions. The scenario that worries Israel is an Iranian attempt to shift the fire from American arena towards us. It could happen through direct fire, through Hezbollah, through the Houthis, or through militias in Iraq and Syria. From Tehran's point of view, bringing Israel into the equation could serve a political goal, pressure Washington to change the terms of the negotiations. But Israel has already made it clear. If Iran attacks the Israeli home front, the response will be powerful, not only defensive, offensive as well. Now, at the same time, the northern arena continues to operate. In southern Lebanon, IDF forces captured another Hezbollah Radwan force terrorist in the Bint Jbeil area. This is the same area where there was a difficult encounter in recent days. The soldiers of the Iftach formation, the 679th Reserve Brigade, operating under the 91st Division, closed in on the terrorist and captured him alive. He was then transferred for interrogation by Unit 504 inside Israel. This is a relatively small event compared with the headlines from Hormuz, but from an intelligence perspective, it could be significant. A Radwan operative knows how Hezbollah is organizing. He can provide information about weapons depots, movement routes, new orders, village infrastructure, and perhaps also the direct connection between Hezbollah and Tehran at this stage. And this is exactly the wider connection. Iran does not hold only a coast in the Gulf. It holds a network. Hezbollah in Lebanon, militias in Iraq, the Houthis in Yemen, connections in Syria, and economic pressure tools through energy routes. When the United States strikes in Hormuz, that entire network checks where it can respond without completely breaking the rules of the game. In Iraq, Washington is applying another layer of economic pressure. Baghdad has agreed to a new monitoring mechanism designed to prevent American dollars from flowing to Iran and the militias connected to it. That may sound technical, but it isn't. Part of Iran's power in the region is based on cash, money changers, prepaid cards, shell companies, and salaries for militias. When the United States touches that pipeline, it is not only hitting a pocket, it is hitting the Axis's ability to maintain fighters, to buy loyalty, and to apply political pressure. In Yemen, new voices are also being heard. Commanders in the legitimate Yemeni army are talking about the need to clean Sana'a of the Houthi militias backed by Iran. Is this an immediate move? Not necessarily, but the timing matters. When Iran is occupied with Hormuz and when the United States is striking directly, even the local enemies of Iran's proxies feel there may be a window of opportunity. On the other side, Hezbollah is trying to show that it is still standing in the field. Naim Qassem called on the Lebanese government to cancel the framework agreement with Israel and claimed the organization remains on the battlefield. Lebanon's president, Youssef Aoun, said in contrast that he chose the path of negotiation because he cannot stand by and watch his homeland being led into the abyss for the interest of another country. He's referring, of course, to Iran. That sentence is aimed directly at the heart of Lebanon's problem. Hezbollah wants to keep Lebanon as part of Iran's axis. Large parts of Lebanon want to get out of the cycle of destruction. And Israel is looking at the northern border and asking one question. Can the Lebanese government truly restrain Hezbollah? Will the IDF have to continue doing it itself? Now let's return to Iran. The regime there is trying to project confidence, but it also understands that the game is dangerous. The strike on 90 targets, the return of sanctions, the threat against Hague, and the possibility of a renewed naval blockade, all of these hit exactly where the regime is most sensitive. The cash, the prestige, the control, and the ability to convince the public that it won. Hague Island is a perfect example. It is not just an island, it is an economic artery. A huge share of Iranian oil exports passes through it. If the United States strikes it, takes control of it, or disabled its function, Iran would face a much deeper crisis. On the other hand, such a move could push oil prices higher and trigger a wider Iranian response. That's why Trump is walking a dangerous line. He wants to hurt enough for Iran to step back, but not in a way that forces it into full-scale war. The problem is that the Revolutionary Guards are counting on that hesitation. They believe they can shoot, threaten, demand money, demand control in Hormuz, and then return to the negotiation table with another card in their hand. That's exactly the point Israel has been making to the world for years. We've said, you can't build an agreement with a regime that uses fire as part of its negotiations. If there's no clear price for a violation, the violation becomes the method. What about the nuclear issue? Here we must not get confused. Even if the headlines now talk about ships, Hormuz and Hague, the strategic objective remains the same: to prevent Iran from obtaining nuclear weapons, to dismantle the infrastructure that allows it to get there, and weaken the ballistic missile network that protects that project. Trump says the United States will not allow Iran to have nuclear weapons. Israel says the same thing. The question is whether the American administration is willing to go all the way, or whether it is still looking for a way back to an agreement that allows Iran to preserve some of its capabilities only with new diplomatic packaging. And on the ground, the Iranians are not behaving like people who are giving up. They're threatening with missiles and drones. They're activating the proxies. They're trying to dictate terms in Hormuz. They're presenting Khamenei's funeral as proof of stability. They're sending a clear message. Even after the leader's death, the resolution and the revolution is not over. But the West also has learned something. If in the past many thought that eliminating one leader would shake the regime to the point of collapse, today they understand that the challenge is deeper. Iran is a system, The Revolutionary Guards are a backbone. Therefore, the struggle is not only against a speech, a flag, or a person, it is against an entire structure built to continue even after severe blows. This night showed that Iran is still dangerous, but also vulnerable. And if Hormuz continues to burn, the entire Middle East could be dragged after it. The question now is whether Trump will stop after another round of strikes, or whether this time the United States and Israel are approaching the moment when they decide to dismantle the threat at its root. So keep spreading the truth, follow us, and most importantly, don't forget to click the subscribe button so that you stay tuned into the truth in real time and never miss boots on the ground. Keep looking for me, Mati Shoshani, and Yael Pinto on social media to see life in Israel through our eyes. And now I want to remind you, as always, to pray for the people of Israel. Whoever you're praying to, if you're a Christian, a Jew, make sure you pray for the people of Israel. You are commanded to do so. We're also commanded to pray for our leaders, to uphold them in prayer, for President Trump, for Prime Minister Netanyahu, and also for the men and women in arms, both in Israel and the United States, who are fighting against the greatest evil of our time, the Iranian Revolutionary Guard, the Ayatollah regime that has put its evil impression on this part of the world. And as always, guys, be blessed, and we'll see you all next time. Hello, this is Mati here in Jerusalem with TBN Israel.
This is Yael Pinto from TBN Israel here in Jerusalem. TBN Israel is keeping viewers informed with Israel-focused news, culture, and what God is doing in this land.
Support TBN Israel today online at tbn.org/Israel. Thank you.